is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about. Real, honest, entertaining, live. DBL starts right now.
3, 2.
Welcome to DBL. It's Friday, May 21st. We made it to the end of the week. I'm Tori with Lindsay and Brandon. Something a little different is not between us anymore. Yeah. We've removed the plexiglass, people. This is very good. We're following CDC guidelines, our company's guidelines. We're still social distancing, but I can really feel like I'm about to fall off.
The energy is changing. I can really feel the vibes.
Yeah, so we're taking steps, you all. This is very, very good. All right, have you all been following the bombshell revelations over the very famous interview that Princess Diana did with the BBC back in the 1990s? All right, let's go back and remember this. You remember this as Martin Bashir. He sat down with him and delivered these now famous words about her husband's, Charles's, affair with Camilla. Let's take a listen.
Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Ooh. I'll never forget that. It was a bit crowded. Well, it turns out an inquiry found the BBC used some very unethical means to try and convince Diana to sit down for the interview. In fact, both Prince William and Harry are slamming the BBC for it. Here's what Prince William had to say about it yesterday.
That BBC employees lied and used fake documents to obtain the interview with my mother, made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia, displayed woeful incompetence when investigating complaints and concerns about the programme, and were evasive in their reporting to the media and covered up what they knew from their internal investigation. It brings indescribable sadness to know that the BBC's failures contributed significantly to her fear, paranoia, and isolation that I remember from those final years with her.
Wow. Prince Harry released a statement saying in part, quote, "The ripple effect of a culture of exploitation and unethical practices ultimately took her life. To those who have taken some form of accountability, thank you for owning it. This is the first step towards justice and truth." Now, millions across the globe tuned in to watch that interview. And now the question is, does the BBC bear some responsibility in her death? What does justice look like for Diana and her kids? Let's just take a moment. Brothers probably aren't on the best of terms, but they came straight out in solidarity on this one. Thoughts, Linz?
I feel really strongly about this because it was similar to what we had in the last year and a half when Kobe Bryant passed away, and we saw the articles going out from actual news outlets that people trusted and believed in that were wrong, saying that all of his family was on board.
I remember that.
And that frustrated me because, you know, in journalism, there's some things that you have to learn, and BBC is one of those staples of, you know, that journalists look to learn from. And so the fact that they were using, I went in a deep dive for this, so some things that they were using were allegedly like a graphic design artist was falsifying documents to say that these things were happening and these are the reasons why they wanted Diana to come. And I think there are ways to get interviews, like building a friendship. As you saw, Oprah probably invested since Meghan and Harry's wedding in order to get them to do that interview with her a year, 2 years later. There's ways to get an interview besides lying and cheating, especially if you're a news outlet. And I think that we have a tabloid culture now, so I understand that it's different and there's a strong line between news and tabloids, but BBC has put itself out there as like a #1 leader in news, especially in the UK and in England as a whole. And I think that it's just insane that they are just not doing more to not only reprimand these people, but take full responsibility for what happened, because it was one of their employees who went on to blow his career up based off that interview.
Wow. Well said. Strong words. And I agree, BBC is not on the line. You are a journalistic source for people. What do you think, Brandon?
I mean, I'm looking at Prince William right there, and I'm seeing how professional he has to be. Well, when in actual reality, if this was like thousands of years ago, he'd just be like off with their heads, you know, for doing something like that. It's one thing, we talk about a mama bear and how a mother protects her children.
Yeah.
It's another thing when you're the oldest son at that time and your mother's going through that and you're comforting her. And now 25 years later, you realize that your mother, the reason for a lot of her pain was because she was exploited. So I'm glad he took that professional route. I mean, he kind of had to, but it's just so unfortunate, you know, that these two are going through that and have to hear this.
Yeah, and I just quickly, I mean, when you talk about, he did say her death. Let's not just say her pain. She was chased, and I would say hunted to her death because of the paparazzi. All right, let's move on to this because it's very similar. Prince Harry is now out with his new mental health series with Oprah on Apple TV Plus, and he's getting very candid about things. I love this about him, including how much, like we were just saying, his mother's death caused him to spiral out of control. He's also talking for the very first time about how he turned to alcohol and drugs to cope with the pain and trauma. Here's some of what he said.
I was willing to try and do the things that made me feel less like I was feeling. Okay, I wasn't drinking Monday to Friday, but I would probably drink a week's worth in one day, not because I was enjoying it, but because I was trying to mask something.
If you can recall, Harry was well known in his 20s for being a bit of a hard partier. We all remember that. There's all sorts of pictures like this one, drinking. He's out. He was the rebel, right? The maverick. So does it change your opinion of Harry to know that he turned to substances to try and cope? And do you think these revelations will help others? I have never heard a more relatable story.
And it's hard to, like, when we look at the royals or anybody famous, but the royals in particular, we put them on this pedestal of, like, not human-like. This man lost his mother as a child. Both of them lost their mother. And it's something that they've been dealing with publicly and really just had to hold themselves to a certain standard because they're part of this royal family and have a smile and wave for years after that. And so all we saw is him, like, partying here and there, and we judged him. But imagine going through that trauma. I have friends that are just living their normal lives who lost parents at a young age, and I know how they're still heavily affected.
You know, I get that, and I don't want to be the bad guy up here, but we've heard this before. I went to high school with rich kids. That's what they do. They party. You know, and I'm not trying to paint everyone under a broad brush, but what's the difference between a kid whose parents are millionaires and a royal kid? You have access to parties, to drugs.
So let me ask you a question.
And you have this, this invincible feeling because you know that you can't get in trouble like a normal kid. So
right.
What's so different
So
than
I
him
hear
and
that,
someone
and
else?
I think that's totally fair because so much of our audience right now is like, oh my gosh, enough of Prince Harry, y'all. I hear you. But is that leading into this belief that rich people can't be addicted and have that disease and go through grief and go through pain? Because I came in this morning and I was like, another Prince Harry story. And then I sat back and talked to Michael Dean, our producer, and he's like, why can't he also be in pain and in addiction? And why is it that privileged people can't be part of that?
He can, but us regular people have a small violin for those rich kids who are like, oh, we had to
No
go through
empathy?
that. No, I have empathy, Tori, but I really have empathy to that kid whose parents are, whose dad's in and out of the penal system, mother working 3 jobs. That kid has to get his brothers and sisters ready for school, pick them up, have a job, and have no life. I have more empathy for that because you're actually going through something.
And that's so what first of all, I want to get your take on this, but that's so what our audience is feeling and know. But also imagine seeing your mother's car crash that killed her over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, right?
And I think it's the difference between like social drinking and like drinking to try to wash away some issues. I think that's that's something that anybody can relate to, whether you are poor, middle class, or rich. And I think that they had the similar problem. It doesn't matter if it's your mother passing or anything you're going through that's a traumatic event as a child. If you start drinking or using any substance to try to quell the pain, which is what he's saying he was doing, I think that that's a relatable experience.
And that's what makes it relatable for us, because we all have someone in our families or friends who've struggled with addiction. But I can see why our viewers, if they're writing in right now, are like, who cares?
I hear that.
Who cares in that sense?
That's a totally fair point of view, and it's Oprah and Prince Harry, and you're just like the two most privileged. I totally understand that, but I also just really quickly think Diana opened up about bulimia and really opened up the door for eating disorders, and I think perhaps her son is opening the door for addiction and mental health work. So bravo on him, in my opinion. Coming up on DBL, musician, this is so good, is telling us about his courageous fight against racism. He sits down with KKK members and convinces them to renounce their hatred, and give up their hood. No kidding. You don't want to miss his powerful story. That's coming up next.
Closed captioning provided by
The Verify team is bringing you the facts when it comes to information spreading online. And after the CDC said vaccinated people can be in most public areas without a mask, posts like these started popping up, claiming that asking someone for their vaccination status violates the federal law HIPAA, or the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So let's verify. Is a business asking a customer about their vaccination status a violation of HIPAA? Here are sources: the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and 3 experts: Ileana Peters, a health privacy specialist from the D.C. Law Office of Polsinelli; Glenn Cohen, a professor at Harvard Law School; and Kate Spector-Baghdadi, a bioethicist from the University of Michigan. Our experts say that the privacy part of HIPAA applies to healthcare providers and health insurance companies from disclosing certain medical information without your consent. So your local grocery store or bar is not restricted by that law. They can ask whether you're vaccinated.
Anyone really can ask you for your information under HIPAA, and it's you, the patient, who has to make the decision: yes, I'm going to give that information, or no, I'm not, because that's my decision. But that isn't regulated by HIPAA.
So we could verify that no, most regular businesses would not violate HIPAA by asking for your vaccination status. With your Verify, I'm Evan Kozlov.
Welcome back to DBL. For more than 30 years, Daryl Davis has befriended members of the KKK, yes, in hopes of getting them to quit the Klan. But how does he do it? We spoke with him earlier in today's DBL Spotlight, and a warning, some of the images you are about to see may be triggering.
Daryl, welcome to DBL. It is definitely our pleasure. Your first interaction with a Klan member was at a bar. So he approached you because he wanted to talk to you about your music. You're also an accomplished musician, and we'll get to that later. But after he told you he was a Klan member, why did you feel the need to continue to talk to him?
I first questioned myself as to why I was sitting at a table with a Klan member, knowing as much as I do about the Klan. But the man was very respectful, very kind, very friendly. And so I accommodated him. You know, I was raised to treat others as I want to be treated. And he, showed me no ill will. He went contrary to what I know about the Klan and all the things that I had, learned about them or perceived about them. He did not quite fit that stereotype.
Now, Daryl, I'm very familiar with your story. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm a huge fan, if that's what you call it. I think you're going to be great for America. You've converted over 200 KKK members, right? And one very specifically, your first one, they give you their KKK robes often. The very first time someone gave you their robe, there was a talk in a car, and then after that car ride, you received his robe. What happened in that car ride?
You have to meet somebody where they are. So this Klansman, he was an exalted Cyclops, which means district leader. And we got on the topic of crime, and he made mention of something that I'd heard a million times, that all black people have a gene within us that makes us violent. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You all have this gene, that makes you that way. And I said, listen, man, I'm as black as anybody you've ever seen. I have never done a carjacking or a drive-by. How do you explain that? This guy did not hesitate and think about it. He answered me like that. He said, your gene is latent, it hasn't come out yet. How do you argue with somebody that far out? I couldn't even grab onto that and chew on it, So I said, well, all white people have a gene within them that makes them a serial killer. He was like, well, explain that. I said, well, name me 3 black serial killers. He couldn't do it. I said, Charles Manson, Jeffrey Dahmer, Henry Lee Lucas, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, David Berkowitz, son of Sam, Albert DeSalvo, the Boston Strangler. I said, son, they're all white. You're a serial killer. He said, Daryl, I've never killed anybody. I said, your gene is latent, hasn't come out yet. He goes, well, that's stupid. I said, well, duh, yeah, it is stupid. But it's no more stupid for me to say that about you than what you said about me.
Brilliant.
And he got very, very quiet. And then it wasn't but a few months after that he quit the Klan based on that dumb conversation.
Jeff said that you have over 200 robes. Is there like a room or a closet in your house you have to give somebody a heads up before they go into?
They're using, yeah, well, you laugh, but yeah, that was true a while back. So now I keep most of the robes locked up off-site.
One of your most publicized conversions was with Roger Kelly. He was a Grand Dragon and Imperial Wizard of Maryland for the KKK. In your opinion, what was it about your relationship with him that made him leave the KKK?
I always conclude one thing, and that is that we all are human beings. And as such, we all want basically the same 5 things in our lives that anybody else wants. We all want to be loved. We all want to be respected. We all want to be heard. We want to be treated fairly. And we want the same things for our family as anybody else wants for their family. And I simply applied those 5 core values into the culture of white supremacy.
Stay with us, because when we come back, we'll chat more with Daryl about his experiences with former Klan members and if he believes they can be stopped. We'll be right back. A warning to our viewers, some of the pictures you are about to see may be triggering. Welcome back to DBL. We are continuing our conversation with Daryl Davis, a musician who talks with Klan members in hopes of changing their views. So far, he has helped convert more than 200 KKK members.
So, Daryl, your meetings go beyond just KKK meetings. You've been to weddings and funerals. What's it like being in those places and people hate you just because of the color of your skin and they don't even know you? How do you stand there and take that and still move forward with a positive attitude?
You know, hurt people hurt people. People who are hurt want others to feel hurt. When you go to these kinds of things, study your opposition way in advance. Familiarize yourself with their position, their attitude, how they arrive there. Know who you are. Have your self-esteem and your ego in check. Because if you don't know who you are and you go to a place like that, they will tell you who you are, and you'll probably end up believing them.
But Daryl, I have to ask, and you touched upon it a little bit, and I know that a lot of our viewers are thinking this very same thing. Have you ever had to fear for your life during these meetings?
Yes, I have, because I've been attacked and I've had to engage in physical violence and put somebody in the hospital, put them in jail. But as I said, you know, those have been few and far between. Somebody just hates you as soon as you arrive. You've given them no reason other than the color of your skin. And sometimes it's just no stopping, you know, that mentality. Even one of them who I did fight with came back to me later and apologized.
Wow. I mean, at this point, it's fair to call you an expert, probably the world's leading expert in the Klan. So I feel very comfortable asking you this question. Can the Klan be stopped? And if so, how?
Listen, ignorance creates fear. We fear those things of which we are ignorant, the things we do not understand. If we do not keep that fear in check, that fear will escalate and create hatred because we hate the things that frighten us. If we don't check that hatred, the hatred escalates and creates destruction. And so what we do is we address the symptoms, destruction, hatred, fear. Forget about those things. The root cause of all of this is ignorance. If we cure the ignorance, there'll be nothing to fear.
Daryl, you are an absolute gift. What an honor it has been speaking with you today. But to our DBL Nation, we also want you to remember this isn't Daryl's full-time job. To your point, Daryl, you're actually an accomplished musician. So DBL Nation, check out his incredible music and visit his website, daryldavis.com. Daryl, there's not enough words to express our gratitude.
You did not disappoint, brother.
Thank you. Thank
Such
you.
a pleasure.
Thank you.
Such a
Thank you all.
We'll be right back.
You can hear
My
it with that
pleasure.
voice.
I know. Amazing.
Promotional consideration is brought to you by
Welcome back to DBL. Summer is right around the corner, so now is the perfect time to build a sustainable exercise routine. We're talking about it in DBL's Focus on Fitness, presented by QB. First, find a moment you actually enjoy and think of it as an experience, not a workout. That allows our subconscious to actually think positively. Second, sometimes the fear of judgment can be tied to failure, so build up your confidence by working out at home. And lastly, you got to make up a motto. Come up with a phrase that will motivate you to want to continue your routine. Just do it is also available from Nike. Staying active is so important amid, and QB has made it easy. Regardless of physical ability or age, try their under-desk elliptical at home. Call 1-800-782-2351 or visit QB.com to learn more. Very nice. I like that. We got some comments. David from Facebook speaking about the Martin Bashir, Princess Diana. How unethical can you get? It almost sounds like an episode of Mission Impossible, like the graphic designer. Secret Intelligence, Dirty Trick. The Brothers says Grow a Tree says on Facebook should launch a civil suit against those who benefited and partook in this manipulation. They should pay and pay financially.
It's just crazy. Like, if you would do that to the royals or to a Princess Diana, who else? What else has he done? You know, and that just goes to show that in the day where we're in the day of where fake news and misinformation is so prevalent in our faces all the time.
What else did Martin Bashir?
What else did Martin Bashir, or just anyone else?
Yeah,
you know?
Especially coming from the BBC.
Yeah, he also had his famous interview. I mean, what else did he do? He interviewed Michael Jackson.
It was the Michael Jackson.
Yeah, there's a lot of interviews. I don't know how he got that one.
How do we get that? Exactly. How do we did that one? Someone also, I do have to bring up Daryl Davis. People responded like crazy to that interview, which I thought was beautifully done. Leslie from Facebook says, I love this guy. And Kenneth from Facebook has the same reaction I had, which is just wow. Just wow. Just bravery and walking into fire. And there's a saying that I've kept to myself that I want to share with you all. Staying calm when you're disrespected is a superpower.
Yes, it is.
And that man
I read that
so
tweet
good. Yeah, of course he did.
Really quick, though, before we go, can I give a shout out? My sister Tyson is graduating from the University of Lynchburg. Her second degree. Love you, girl.
We love you. Happy birthday to Jody, one of our senior producers. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Bye, guys. There she is.
I always wave too early.
Jody.